You're on there.
Yep. You guys got me?
Yep, we got you, Cody. Thank you for taking some time with us this afternoon. I know we're a couple minutes early, so thank you. We appreciate you. We will go ahead and go right into questions and start with Chase Wilhelm. Go ahead, Chase.
Hey, Cody, thanks for joining us today. I was curious what led to your decision to go full-time cup racing again this season, and if the next-gen car had anything to do with that, with the mentality that it might level the playing field a little more this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, last year was a lot of struggle for us throughout the season. Saw a little bit of success here and there, but overall, definitely a long road. With the next-gen car coming into play, I really felt like I was cautiously optimistic about the parity that was going to be seen in the field. And so after doing a little bit of testing between the Charlotte Roval and the Charlotte Oval testing, kind of seeing how I stacked up against some of the guys with an equal car and things like that, definitely gave me the confidence to dive in and make the commitment for the full-time Cup Series this year. And that was after weighing some options of, some other series, whether that be doing some IndyCar stuff, IMSA stuff, things like that. But and then obviously having the LA weekend go as well as it did for us and the race team as a whole, just gave me a lot of confidence going into the Daytona 500 and the season as a whole. I think as the year goes on, we'll obviously see a lot of R&D and development go on with some of the bigger teams. But hopefully, with that being said, with our Stewart-Haas alliance, we'll also be somewhat on the cutting edge of that, and we'll be able to get some of that information as it comes along throughout the year.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Next question will come from Lee Spencer. Go ahead, Lee.
I don't hear you there.
I think you're on mute, Lee.
No, I said you seem super stoked about getting when you got out of the car the other day, on Sunday at the racetrack, and I'm just kind of curious what it was about the way that the car drove that gave you such elation, because I think that you just really, I don't know, it just your enthusiasm was huge.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really exciting. Thankfully, I've got a lot of experience racing modifieds at Bowman Gray, so having a lot of that quarter-mile short track experience definitely paid off. But to finally see kind of what we'd all been hoping for, to have a fair shot with these new cars and to be more competitive with our alliance with Stewart-Haas and with Ford Performance was really good. And so it definitely has me excited. Before, it was definitely like a cautious optimism, and now I'm just really excited to get going with this racing season, because it's given me a lot of confidence in myself as a driver too. It's like, hey, you've been held back a little bit by these cars in years past, and now, we have a chance to really go do some hard racing.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, our next question will come from Ashley McCubbin. Go ahead, Ashley.
Seeing the performance that you guys put together at the LA Coliseum and that confidence, what are the realistic goals for the team this season?
I think realistically, we want to obviously start with improving our average finish. And so I would like to see us be competing for top 25s, top 20s on a regular basis. We were always right around, the lower, the high 20s to 30th place typically. And so to see an average, spot boost like that would definitely be the first part. And then for me personally, to see a little bit of improvement on the super speedways and road courses where we can potentially be competing for those top 15s and top 10s is definitely where I'd like to be. My goals and expectations for the year, even if it's a pretty big hill to climb, is to be 25th in points. Obviously last year, there's a lot of heavy hitters that were right around that area as well. But I think you got to set high goals to try to achieve the best. And that's what we're looking for this year.
And then looking at the car's first in-race performance, with that being an exhibition race, what were your takeaways from the car and its surprises and how things played out?
I would say surprising in a good way. I think that the older cars would not have drove as well at the LA Coliseum. I think having the next-gen cars with the independent rear suspension really made navigating the quarter-mile racetrack with those tight turns, as well as we did it there, possible. And so to bring those new cars out there and to, kind of a risky, dicey situation for teams, the drivers, the series as a whole, really paid off in dividends, and also gave, small guys like us here at Rick Ware Racing, the opportunity to show that, given some parity and given some equal race cars that we can go out there and race with anybody.
Thanks for your time today.
Our next question will come from Kelly Crandall. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Hey, Cody. So can you just tell us more about how the alliance with Stewart-Haas is going to work? Because I think a lot of fans are interested in that. And at the Clash, you guys certainly had showed a ton of speed. So are your cars coming directly from their race shop? How is the alliance going to work this year?
So yes and no. So for the Daytona 500, our cars are being prepped by Stewart-Haas. Actually, our cars from the LA Clash were built in-house at our own race shop. Moving throughout the year, we're definitely going to see a lot of obviously information trade. The big part of this alliance that makes it mutually beneficial for both us and SHR is obviously having the 51 and the 15 for them to be able to try different things. So throughout the year to be able to try experimental setups or try different things, they're going to have another 2 cars to work off of and build information off of. So for them, it gives them more cars to learn from. And for us, obviously in exchange, we're getting a lot of that setup information. And then alongside also having just the Ford engine lease program for the year is going to be a big step in power for us compared to years past. And so I think for all parties involved, it's going to be a really good thing to just have more cars and more information for everybody going into this new car.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Rob Tiongson. Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Cody, for joining us today. I have a couple of questions for you as it relates to this new next-gen car. I feel like there's some kind of disconnection with fans before when they looked at the Gen 6 car and previous iterations of the Cup car. But as a driver, how exciting is it to see a car that's pretty identical to the street on the racetracks this year?
That's really cool. I mean, honestly, I think that the NASCAR and all the manufacturers knocked it out of the park. I think, the new Mustangs, Chevy, Toyotas, they all look really good. Obviously moving towards, independent rear suspension and things that you see on street cars, moving away from a lot of the antiquated tech, like the solid rear axles and things like that. I think definitely for the younger and newer crowd that's going to be watching these NASCAR races, definitely is going to give something for them to actually kind of relate to and latch on to as we, get these cars into the modern era.
Certainly. My last question for you is, you've been pretty open about your mental health journey. I think you were one of the first racers to really be open about it. What was it like to kind of share that journey with others and know that others have kind of followed your example?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's a double-edged sword. Obviously I get a lot of enjoyment and happiness out of getting to share that and hopefully help others in the process. But there's also been a little bit of backlash here and there. Obviously, people like to make comments like, oh, well, should you be out there? Is it even safe? And things like that. And I think that, for me, it's definitely something where it's worth the potential the risks involved with it, because mental health is such a major problem in this country and the world as a whole. And I think that with COVID and the quarantine and things in the years past really highlighted how many people actually deal with things like that. And so, the first step to kind of ending that stigma is to, if you're somebody that has a platform to be able to open up about it and talk about it and show people that they're not alone that's what's the most important thing about all of that.
Certainly. It's very commendable of you to do that. And I wish you the best of luck as the season kicks off.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Bob Pockris. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Cody, last year Mike Hillman was your crew chief. This year Billy Floyd is your crew chief. Was there something about the way Billy worked that you wanted him to kind of take over your car?
No, me and Mike still have a really good relationship. Initially, his plans were to kind of step back a little bit and focus on the Xfinity side of our race program for this year. And so Billy was kind of going to be the goal to replace him on the Cup side. It wasn't a decision as far as me not wanting to work with him. Actually, when we first started talking about the next gen car, my initial plan was to have Mike Hillman as my crew chief for this season. But I think he's trying to relax a little bit more as he's getting older and kind of step away a little bit. He's still a part of the race team, and it's still really cool just to share the success for both of our cars at the Clash last weekend. And we still have a good relationship. And I think that working with Billy this year is going to be really good. He's got a lot of experience with Chevrolet and working closely with obviously Germain and RCR and things like that. And to be able to have a guy that's got a lot of passion and drive to prove himself as a crew chief, and obviously myself who wants to start to prove myself as a driver here in the Cup Series. I think it's going to be a really awesome combination going into this year.
Thank you.
And our final question will come from Tucker White. Go ahead, Tucker.
Cody, as we're saying with the Cup Series, you have 36 races in the season and fewer and fewer off weeks as time goes by. So in terms of personal relationships and mental well-being, what kind of toll does that grind take on a driver like yourself?
It's definitely difficult. Last year obviously was my first full season in the Cup Series, and alongside that, with doing a few IndyCar races, the IMSA race at the start of the year and things like that, it was definitely probably a lot more than I bargained for initially. But I think that everything that we did as a race team and myself as a driver, we did last year has definitely given me a lot of prep and a lot of kind of coping mechanisms and tools to take care of myself, both mentally and physically throughout the year. And I do feel like, as much of a struggle as last year was for me, both on and off the racetrack, I think it's prepared me well and given me the best shot I have to go forward with this new car and give it 110%. There's definitely still going to be times where we're going to have struggles and we're going to have to, fight through the tough stuff. But I've got the most confidence I've had going into a racing season in my entire racing career goes. And, for once, I'm definitely going in with more optimism and enthusiasm than negativity. And so I think, every day you wake up is a struggle with mental health, but I think that it's just about managing it as well as you can and focusing on the positive stuff and just tackling it when you get your day going so that I can make the most of this.
All right. And now to a more pressing matter. What anime are you currently working your way through?
Right now, I've actually been watching Eden Zero, which is a new Netflix anime. And then I've actually been rewatching Inuyasha and Cowboy Bebop, some of the classics from, Toonami and stuff. So always watching something.
All right. Thank you.
Cody, it looks like we had a few more questions pop up, so we will continue on and go to Stephen Toronto. Go ahead, Stephen.
Cody, first off, I dropped Eden Zero after one episode, so not that it wasn't good. It's just that I didn't have time to fit it in with everything else I was watching last spring. On to racing things. Rick Ware Racing, over the past couple of years, they've built their Cup program. I think it's been said that you guys have been building more toward the next gen car as opposed to the immediate present when you guys were running the Gen 6. Can you talk to me about what the planning process of that was and what the overall mission was, and how vindicating has it been these past couple of days after the Clash to see that kind of bear fruit in Los Angeles last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was always going to be a process. And for us, we had always had our mindset with the next gen car in mind as far as kind of stepping up to that next level. And so obviously as the next gen program got delayed, so did kind of our plans to step up our program. And so, looking from the very beginning in the inception of this car, looking at the parity and how much of an equalizer this car was going to be, we wanted to make sure that when we reinvested and put all of our eggs in one basket, we wanted to make sure we did it in the right way. And so obviously downsizing was the first step, going from 4 charters down to 2 charters and reinvesting that money back into the race team was step number 1. And then obviously trying to pick the best alliance and the best manufacturer to go with. And so for the past year or so, we've been talking to various race teams and manufacturers and things like that to make sure that when we step up and make this big investment that we did it the right way. And so finally, working with Joe Custer and everyone over at Stewart-Haas Racing, it seemed like the best fit. And Ford Performance was definitely excited to have another team on board as well. And so to have all that come together and then to start to be able to work with Stewart-Haas through all the next gen testing was really exciting. Obviously, my first chance to drive it was, I think, the Tuesday or Wednesday after the Charlotte Roval road course race. And so to get to hop in and see the change back to back, and also to see the speed that we had with the new car in comparison to the Gen 6 car, just with a little bit of time with Stewart-Haas and the new car was really exciting for me and the race team as a whole. And so to see the testing at the Oval, the testing at Daytona obviously went really, really well as well. And so to have that all come together at the Clash last weekend, and for me and Priest to be able to race, obviously he made it into the main event. Super bittersweet for me, but to still be racing there till the end of the LCQ to try to make my way in as well was just really, really exciting. And it really took a weight off my chest, where it reminded myself too that, like, hey, I can do this and I belong here just as much as anyone else does. And just really excited to get to Daytona. Obviously the LA Coliseum's not anything like we'd traditionally be racing, but it's still a good indicator, and we got a chance to show what we can do, and it's got all of us jacked up for this year.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody.
Next question will come from Justin Palmer. Go ahead, Justin.
Thank you. Cody, we've been hearing from the SHR drivers that they're only going to have one car at the Daytona 500. Is that safe to say that Rick Ware will also only have one car available for the 500 weekend?
Yep. So right now we're going to be going down to Daytona with just one car per team. So the car we unload with is the car we plan on racing. And, obviously that's what we're sticking with for now. So.
And the follow-up question to that is, there are going to be some guys who are not locked into the field who are going to be going all out to get in the Daytona 500. How do you be cognizant of those guys, and while also trying to protect your car to make sure it's good on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we still want to race and try to have a good starting spot for the 500. Hopefully there's other teams like Stewart-Haas who we can potentially work with and try to, find a good group of guys to race with and draft with during the duels, and know that we're all on the same wavelength as far as staying out of trouble and finishing the duels. Because obviously I'm really excited to have the car that I have for the 500 being prepped by Stewart-Haas. And so I'd be devastated if something happened to it before the 500 on Sunday. And so I think I'm not the only one that's in that boat. Obviously Stewart-Haas is in that boat. And I think that us and the other Ford guys can hopefully work together and still have a good race, but also be smart about it too. Cause there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to go for broke that aren't even racing the full season. They're going to try to make their way in with this new car. And, even not just for the Daytona either, but for the West Coast swing, when we need cars and we need chassis, and we don't need to have torn up race cars for the first weekend of the year.
Thank you.
Next question will come from Ashley McCubbin. Go ahead, Ashley.
Hey, Cody, we've watched your father expand this team more and more, going ISM, going INSPA, IndyCar, and even in with the NASCAR Pinty Series. What has it been like for you watching the success of the team, including a victory last season up in Canada with the Pinty Series, courtesy of Andrew Ranger?
No, it's really awesome. Obviously my father has a pretty diverse background in racing, just like I do. My grandfather and my dad raced in Trans Am when they were living out in California back in the 80s. And he's done a lot of IMSA racing, NASCAR racing, obviously tried to make it as a NASCAR driver himself before he had an injury at Fontana back in 2000. And so to see my dad still kind of live his dream and be a part of all this type of different styles of racing, and be a team owner in IndyCar and NASCAR, doing the 24-hour last year together. It's really cool. And it definitely just makes me really thankful and blessed to be a part of this family race team. And obviously with my focus being on NASCAR this year, it's a bummer to not be involved with some of the IndyCar stuff and other things that we're doing, but to still watch it, to have guys like Takuma Sato driving for us on the IndyCar side is really cool. And, I'm excited to finally put the pieces of the puzzle together on the Cup side to where we can hopefully have good operations across all forms of motorsport here in the U.S.
I was going to ask, you are focused on the Cup Series this year, but down the road in the future, could we see you back behind the wheel of an IndyCar once again?
I would definitely love to, hopefully engine availability is better going forward the next year or two. I know Honda's had a little bit of engine shortages for, third and fourth cars for a lot of these one-off type races, but I would definitely love to go back and make the double happen between the 500 and the 600. Obviously I did ROP last year and made it through ROP no problem at Indy. And so I'd love to actually go back and make a run for Indy 500 qualifying, and then try to figure out a way to hightail it back to Charlotte for the 600. So, watching Kurt do that a couple of years ago was really cool, and to see how well he did in the Indy 500. I definitely like to be the next NASCAR guy to go try to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, Cody, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you next week at Daytona.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.